There are many different tools that you can use as options when finding out what is your style. There are systems like the Kibbe body type system, the Kitchener Essence system, or even the Dark Muse archetypes, a series that I started on my channel. But one of my other favorite style tools that I find extremely beneficial and find that it goes so much deep into who you are as a person, and in turn is a great source of inspiration for your style, is astrology. This is a collaboration video with Evangeline Molly, content creator that makes makeup and art essence videos and different inspiration that comes to style and makeup. As I go through the different reasons why astrology is a great source of inspiration for style and where specifically to look to in your birth chart, I'm going to be going over the astrology style reading or style guide that I made for Evangeline. Just a disclaimer, when it comes to astrology, there are numerous different systems and methods to go about. Please be kind and respectful in the comments if you do not agree with my practice. For your reference, I do practice tropical astrology, I do whole sign, practice that of traditional astrology in terms of ruling planets. Now, I am very well aware that there are many of you who watch my videos that practice Vedic astrology, sidereal, and I just want you to know that I do respect all forms of astrology practice. I'm just letting you know for reference of the type of astrology that I focus on when it comes to my style reading, so that's something to keep in mind. You can still take my methods in terms of how to take certain parts of your chart and use it as a source of inspiration for certain parts of your wardrobe. Okay, when it comes to astrology in terms of using it as a tool for style, I have conflicting emotions about it trending on different social media platforms. One, I love that it is becoming more widely spread. I grew up during a time where talking about astrology was it's kind of nice that astrology is becoming more widely accepted. However, I do feel like the biggest thing where it falls short in terms of using it for style is that it is overgeneralized. The biggest thing is, whenever I look at someone's chart and I'm building a style guide for them, I have to look at their chart as a whole. I choose the top 3 parts of their chart or aspects that I want to focus on and talk about different garments, inspirations that they can look to due to these certain placements. So one of the things that I recommend looking into when you look at the chart as a whole, what is their chart ruler? Now, to find their chart ruler, you look to your rising sign. And then once you find out what your rising sign is, you find out the chart ruler of that sign. Essentially, your rising or your ascendant is important to think about when it comes to style. It is what people see first. It is your physical traits that people see. It is often mistaken for the mask of yourself. I find that kind of an inaccurate analogy the more I think about it and as I get older, because this idea of a mask means that it's a disguise. It's not really who you are. Your rising is not a disguise. It is just what people see first, but it is still a part of you. Instead of a mask, I see it more so as a suit of armor. It is an extension of you. So it could be your sword. It could be, because swords are often described as extensions of yourself. I think a mask is incorrect. It is not a disguise. There are other aspects to think about in your chart. So whereas your rising is your external expression, your moon is who you are at your core. It is who you are at your most vulnerable. It is considered your inner world. It symbolizes your inner emotions and oftentimes can have an insight into your family. Your chart ruler is also something to think about, but also think about what sign is in your chart ruler. So for example, my chart ruler is in Jupiter because my rising is Pisces. However, my Jupiter, I have Scorpio in Jupiter. So the overall feel and aura of Scorpio has a relevant and influence on my chart and how I dress. Your Venus is also an aspect to keep in mind. I personally don't think it's an aspect to think about for everybody, like it's often advertised on social media, but your Venus is still something to account for depending on your chart. Your Venus is how we experience pleasure, what we find beautiful, as well as our aesthetic tastes. I also think your midheaven is an interesting aspect to think about. Your midheaven is your ambitions, your brand identity, and your public persona and how society views you. Now, this depends on your chart in general and also your goals, because sometimes your goals and ambitions line up with how you want to dress. And a big thing to think about when you're looking at your chart as a whole and what parts of your chart are relevant in terms of style and your self-expression in dressing yourself is the houses. Now, there are 12 houses in your chart. So when you look at your chart, it is a circle and there are 12 different houses, and each of those houses represent something different. So like I mentioned, your rising is in your first house. It is your appearance. So we already talked about that. That is definitely something to keep in mind when it comes to style. Other houses that I recommend looking into, or if I do a style guide for you in terms of astrology, these are some houses that I may account for. Your second house, in terms of how they express themselves, is because the second house is often how you spend money. It is a representation of your possessions, your material items, and your values. So this all revolves around style in many ways, because even though I do love to talk about style in a metaphorical artistry sense, style and the garments you put on your body is still a material object. Another house to look to is the fifth house. So some astrologers think the fifth house is a great place for style because this is oftentimes your creative expression. It is where you find pleasure. It is your sense of individuality. And like I mentioned, your midheaven represents your goals, your career, your status, your public persona, and your ambitions. So your midheaven is oftentimes in the 10th house, not always, but the 10th house in general does revolve around career, how society views you. So midheaven, 10th house, that's still something to keep in mind when it comes to a style reading. Of the different style tools, and astrology just being one of them and being an optional tool, my Dark Muse series, especially if you have a dark aesthetic or your style goal is to achieve a darker aesthetic and you don't really know how to approach it. In addition to my Astrology Style Guides, I want to have an additional add-on where you don't just get the astrology reading, but also you let me know what your Dark Muse is or who your Dark Muse is of the 5. It lets me know to keep your Dark Muse in mind as I go through your chart and as I give you recommendations and build a mood board for you. So in Evangeline's case, so as I looked through her chart as a whole, I noticed that she is ruled by the sun, making her a Leo rising. So as a Leo rising and ruled by the sun, I wanted to look at her sun sign, which is in Sagittarius. So this overall feeling definitely gave me an idea of a color palette and some other nuances to keep in mind. She also has a Cancer moon sign, and it is a benefic placement considering that Cancer is ruled by the moon. As I looked through her chart as a whole, I also wanted to take an account of her Scorpio Venus, and her Dark Muse of choice is Siren. I'm going to show you the thought process that I had as I was going through her chart. I was talking her through my process. Iteration you'll see that I'm showing her is my rough draft, and normally when I email it to you guys, it's going to be much more refined, which I will show after.
Watching your videos and it's like, now you're here and I'm talking to you.
Shall we get started?
Yeah, so excited to like see the chart and everything you've come up with. This is like a first for me, like really delving into my chart.
I will say, just a disclaimer, usually I like to take a lot of time on like doing charts, like doing chart readings. So consider this kind of like the beginning steps. So this, what I sent you is kind of like a rough draft. There are some things that I normally like to refine whenever I'm making my mood boards. Just to give you an overview of what I normally do is I take a look at your chart, and normally I fill up the first page with kind of like a summary of what I want you to focus in terms of certain placements in your chart. The second page is a mood board, like as you can see, I put my favorite image of you and like the most siren-like image, and just like color palettes, just like a rough idea of the overall feel. So your chart ruler is in your sun Sagittarius, And normally I don't look to the sun sign for style inspiration because your sun is essentially your ego, and it's kind of like the tip of the iceberg of who you are. But because Sagittarius is also in your chart ruler, I think it's also important to know Sagittarius. And then I'm also going to highlight your moon sign, Cancer. I feel like that really aligns with your affinity for the dark siren muse.
Mm.
And then we'll touch upon a little bit on your Venus, which is in Scorpio. You kind of remind me of an oil painting. And I feel like that really lines up with your moon sign, which is in Cancer. So, Cancer is a water sign, and Cancer is, I know this is like a trending word, but Cancer is like the definition of demure. It is kind of like they're to themselves, they're a little sensual, they're a little like don't look at me, but like also and it automatically feels very siren-like and mermaid-like. So as I refined her mood board even more, there were definitely certain things that I wanted to highlight and keep in mind. So as you can see, I added a layer over her mood board to give an overall feeling. I feel like when it comes to your style, it's all about the little details. So the background, I decided to change it to a watercolor texture with watercolor colors. So her dark muse of choice is Siren. So Siren of the dark muses is going to be this subtly sensual dark muse. It is sleek silhouettes. It is taking inspiration from satins that mimic the look of the shine that you see in water. It is a slight shimmer in the makeup. Keeping in mind that she has a Cancer moon and a Scorpio Venus, we have these watery elements that already complement her affinity for the dark muse. But also keeping in mind her Leo rising and Sagittarius sun, you have this aura of warmth that is often associated with these signs. And so I'm thinking, when I was looking at her chart and keeping the siren in mind, I actually envisioned a siren in warmer waters or a nymph around the pond. I also thought of pre-Raphaelite paintings. There were a lot of subjects within the pre-Raphaelite era in terms of the art realm where you see these beautiful beings by the water, but it is painted in this warmer color palette, like the warmth you feel over the ocean on a beach day. So it still has this siren-like quality, but with the warmth in the color. So you have this beautiful mix. So in addition to giving her a full written version of the different aspects that I wanted to focus on in terms of her chart and her mood board. So the mood board is there for a sense, like an overall feeling of the style that your chart gives off, in addition to your dark muse of choice. But also I want to give a helpful call to action. So the last page of the chart reading is going to be this page that has the basics and essentials. They could be a mix of sketches, they could be a mix of actual garments that I found online. And if you want to see how Evangeline shopped and curated her own outfits by using my style guide, please head on over to Evangeline's video, which I will have linked down below. Hopefully that gave some insight into how to make how to use astrology as a personal style tool for your personal journey when it comes to curating your wardrobe. Please check out Evangeline's video. I got a sneak peek of it and it was so fun to collaborate with her. We talked about some other things in addition to doing an astrology style guide for her. We talked a little bit about sustainability, personal fashion, and our own style journeys, so keep a lookout for that in the future. As of March 30th, I will have openings for my astrology personalized style guides, and all the details will be in my shop, which will be also linked down below. So the way I'm going to format my slot openings for these style readings is essentially I'm going to be doing a few a week. So when you purchase, you're essentially going to be choosing the date that you will receive it, just to keep in mind, because I will only be able to work on a few guides at a time, if that makes sense. If you want to keep up to date in terms of if I sell out, and you want to keep up to date in terms of when I will have them in stock again, and I will have availability to do more. You can keep up to date on my Instagram stories. I will also try to be more active in terms of my email newsletters. And if you are a Patreon member, I do have announcements on there. I hope you have a great week, and until next time, bye.